So I'm gonna ask, what do y'all keep up with usually? What are the news things that you follow on a weekly basis?
Politics.
Okay, well that's kind of everywhere, yeah. And what sources too?
Apple News.
Okay, so use Apple News, okay. And that's a good that's an aggregator, so you get a lot of different sources when you use a tool like that. Okay, does anyone else have any?
Wall Street Journal.
I use the New York Times.
Okay, New York Times, CNN.
I have student subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal and New York Times.
Okay, good. All right, so first a little bit about why bother, okay? The news is scary sometimes, it's overwhelming, but there are good professional reasons to do it, right? To stay informed for your business. In practice, if you have clients that conduct business in a particular industry, you should be current on what's happening in that industry. You should use the news sources available to you to inform your business. As a student, being informed can make a really positive impression. You hate to be in an interview and someone mentions something in the news and you got the blank face. So keeping up with what's happening, even just at a conversational level, can be really helpful to you professionally, even as a student. And I'm going to go back to saying time and money, right? If you don't want to be behind the ball on an issue, if you're working in an area that there's an industry that's important to you, and your client, and you're behind the news, and there's something that regulatory, for example, that affects your client, you want to be ahead of that, not behind it, so it can really affect your business and it can save you time and money. So there's really good reasons to keep up, and there's some tools that make it a little bit easier because it is overwhelming, it's everywhere. So you need to use some tools that are available to you and also evaluate them, similar to the way we discussed with web sources. Okay? So what type of sources should you consider? There is a distinction between popular press, which a lot of you named mostly popular press, which is great. There is another category of news that's legal news that is published by legal publishers, written by journalists in the area of law, or written by attorneys. There's a category of content that's written, they use the phrase by lawyers for lawyers. So there's a category of content like that that can be really useful to you both as a student and in practice to kind of narrow out the buzz of the popular press and really get to the legal issues of things and explain them in kind of a quick journalistic style. Okay? Also, consider blogs. There are a lot of really reputable attorneys that write blogs in particular practice areas. They're great to follow. I'm sure a lot of you have heard or read SCOTUS blog. Those are things that are worth your attention. So don't hear blog and dismiss it as, blog of cat memes or whatever. Okay. The other thing is alerts. So you can make this work a lot easier by setting up some really smart alerts for yourself. You don't have to every day go troll through a feed of news. You can get alerts to the things that are important to you, for example, in an industry or a business or a client name or something like that, and just let them come to you. So there are some of these. Okay. I'm going to jump out of this because we've already, please ignore that horrible picture. I'm trying to hide it. But there is a LibGuide or a research guide that is all of the current awareness sources that we have out of the law library. So we've assembled them all in one place. I'll make sure this link gets to you in our LibGuide next week. But this has a collection of the sources that will keep you up to date on both legal news and popular press and access to the subscriptions. Yep.
I was looking a couple weeks ago at, I think it was the Federal Register or maybe the CFR.
Okay.
And you can get emails sent to you if an agency updates.
Yep.
I tried to do it, but it wasn't working, so I didn't know if that's something that we talked about or I can do that.
So I'm going to log into Westlaw and Lexis in a minute and show you, because you can create an alert on Lexis or Westlaw on almost anything, including a regulation.
Okay.
So were you on a platform like that, or were you on?
I was on DACA,
Okay, like federalregister.gov.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
That you can do. I think you have to create an account. I was going to do it in Westlaw and Lexis here, but maybe later we can try and look at it.
Whatever's easiest. If I get
But
the same thing. Then.
Okay, I'm going to log into Westlaw and Lexis, and you can create an alert on those platforms on almost anything. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. But I'm going to jump out of this, and we're going to go ahead and work through this. Okay, So this is organized on the left side. What we're going to look at is popular press and legal news. And then we're going to do some alerts. So I heard someone mention that they have that they activated their New York Times and Wall Street Journal subscriptions. Everyone here can have digital access to the Wall Street Journal and New York Times from your own account. All right? You can follow the links on this page and sign up for that, and you can access them at your leisure, however you like. There's also, if you're searching for historical content, the New York Times does have a pretty good archive just on their website, but if you're looking for older materials, we have links to what's available both on Lexis and ProQuest if you're actually doing some research with those sources. Same goes for Wall Street Journal. You do have to follow these links to sign up. You can't just go to NewYorkTimes.com and use your school email. You have to follow this particular link. Okay? But New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Charleston Gazette, Dominion Post, so some local sources. And if there are any others that you're hunting for, any local papers, for example, if you'll be spending the summer elsewhere, let us know. We can see what the best way access is through the library. Don't pay for something that we pay for. So if that's the case, come see one of us. Okay? So that's popular press. The legal news, I have some newer sources for you. So has anyone seen links to Law 360 floating around a lot? So a few hands. So this is something that if you're on campus, you'll have access to via IP authentication. Lexis, I don't know if they bought them or if it's just a licensing agreement, but Law 360 content is also available on Lexis Advance. There's about a one-day embargo, but it is available on Lexis. So if it's your preference to get all your alerts out of Lexis, you can do that with Law 360 content as well. But if you are on campus or off, you can use the standalone website. So if you're on campus, easy IP authentication. You can also sign up for alerts separately. So if I click over and use the menu on the left, at the very bottom I can sign up for newsletters, and there are over 60 of them. So third from the bottom here. That's not logging me in the way it should. For example, I'm not going to let you suffer through my login issues, but there are over 60 newsletters, both on subject matter areas and also jurisdictional areas. So for example, there's an Illinois newsletter, so if you're working in Chicago, that would be really smart subscription. But the newsletters are available both straight from Law 360 and also in Lexis Advance. Okay. And this is one of those in this category is the by lawyers, for lawyers. So you're getting a lot of practitioners writing for this site, and also legal journalists. BNA Law Reports, I think you're going to see again in the Bloomberg Law Overview, but these are published by BNA, which is a part of Bloomberg, and these are really subject specific, again, the by lawyers, for lawyers category of content. And there's a selection of these that are updated weekly. So you can get a weekly newsletter on topics organized in a similar way to Law 360, but I find them to be a little more in-depth than Law 360. And they also have a little bit more on primary sources, so a new case that comes out will be featured a little more heavily in the BNA Law Reports than it might be on Law 360. And again, just links to some legal news, in particular on Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I cannot combine those titles, I just tried. So some popular press, but to their specific content. Same subscriptions apply in the last tab. So let's jump out to Lexis and Westlaw. This password I have saved. Okay. So when you're on the home page for Westlaw, you're looking for the News tab. Here in the middle, towards the bottom of the first box. And this is kind of the news landing page. This is an aggregate of all of the news sources available on the platform. If you need to know what sources are aggregated here, the index and the right and the panel on the right will list all the sources that are available and aggregated here. It's not going to be the same as Lexis. It could be missing a particular source. So again, before you start searching here, check the index and make sure the thing you're searching for is actually in the database. Okay, but let's try an example. So something in the news lately. Okay, so that's a lot of news items, 208, but for the second time, the Supreme Court, heard sturgeon defrost, okay, or heard issues in this particular case. But and it was remanded, so there will be more. So if knowing that it's been remanded and there's going to be more on this particular case and on this particular issue, you're almost always looking for the bell icon, okay? So the bell in the top right corner, if you want new news on this issue of hovercrafts in the Alaskan National Parks, you can hit the bell and you can choose what it's going to send you, how frequently it's going to send it to you, and in what format. Okay? So you can do this for news items on both platforms. To get a little bit closer to your question, I'm going to back up to the home page. And if I look up the case itself, remember the slow type. So this is a particular case related to those news items. You can see the history of it is complicated, but just this week, the Supreme Court remanded it yet again. And knowing that there's more action coming, right, you could set an alert again, looking for the bell, and anytime there's a filing, anytime there's a new opinion in a lower court or back to the Supreme Court, you're going to get an alert. So the same thing is going to work if you're looking at a statute or a regulation. Statute. Okay, same thing. See the bell? So anytime there's any changes, you can also set it up for anytime there's a new citing reference, so anytime something else cites to it, primary source or secondary source, you can get an alert. Okay? You're almost always looking for the bell. It's almost always in the top right corner. It works for news, works for statutes, regulations, and cases. Okay. You can also do a more global alert. You can start at the home page, use your keywords, and get different types of content rather than that specifically related to a statute or regulation. So alerts on almost anything. They're at no additional cost on a commercial platform, and they can also really help filter out the news on a particular issue for you. If you're feeling overwhelmed about it and you really need a targeted solution. So let's take a quick look at a similar search on Lexis. Okay, so this is the news homepage on Lexis. It's very similar. These are all the news sources aggregated, presented by jurisdiction and by topic. But you can do the same thing if I look for if I do the same search, I'm going to get quite a lot of news, but I can use the filters on the left-hand side to really craft the search that retrieves the most relevant results. And when I'm satisfied with all of those filters, I can set an alert. Okay, and in this case, the bell is right at the top next to the search terms. Okay, but same thing, statutes, regulations, platform searches, news searches, can set an alert customized to what you're looking for. Okay? Any questions about alerts on these two platforms? I know we have lots of questions about Alaska and the hovercraft, but we'll save those for another day. It's my favorite example this week. So I think, let me jump back. alerts were the last thing I want to talk about. So any questions about news or current awareness, any of the sources that we talked about or I showed you, or anything about alerts? I'll have lots of links to share in the Live guide when we load up everything we talked about.
How much is like a base, like a West Virginia practitioner, they're like a small office?
Well, and that's a tough call. That's highly negotiated, so they don't, I don't know about a single, I think there are some basic numbers for a single monthly subscription. Do you have those, Kira?
For Western Lexus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
a single
sometimes-
user, small firm.
I've sometimes heard something over 100, like 100.
Yeah, it can be in the low hundreds if
Oh, I
it's
thought it
a,
would be way more.
well, no, but the more content you add and the
Right.
more people in your firm,
Mhm.
it's gonna go up and up.
Right,
Okay.
it
For-
depends
for a
on what all you're
single-
contracting to use.
So for a one-person primary sources, you might pay in the hundreds.
And if you go outside of the contract,
Yeah, that's.
you could be looking at $85 a search.
Yeah. I scared them with the Westlaw price list.
Mhm.
But it can be in the low hundreds, and it's all, you come add one treatise to that, and it's gonna change. If you add one person to your firm and they get a login, it's gonna change again. So it's highly negotiated and customized, and you can negotiate with them quite a bit, depending on how long you've been a customer, or there's lots of different factors. So I'd be shocked if any firm pays anything. It can get kind of wild. Anything else before I turn things over? We had a little break built in, so take 5 minutes, stretch your legs and such. And then Professor Podby is going to talk about practice materials.